This next fight is pretty long. I spent several minutes bouncing planets trying to get the response fleet to chase after me, get themselves strung out. My hope was eventually one of them would make a mistake I could exploit, and they did. But it took several minutes, and bouncing planets isn't the most engaging gameplay footage, so I've sped it up, and I'm going to use this time to talk a bit about the fit. I knew for this season I wanted to play around with the MJD a bit. I'd seen some really interesting plays with the MJD and the AT, and I figured there's got to be ways to employ that solo on Tranquility. So I talked to some friends about it, and eventually Verdict pointed me to some videos from about 6 years ago by a member of Goonswarm named Tomawak, who used all 4 of the main command destroyers as brawling films. He had this rocket Storked in particular that I found fascinating because it was just completely different from the stuff I normally fly. I don't do much brawling. I've never flown anything with multiple props, and I've never really played with the field generators before. So it was just wacky enough that I decided I wanted to spend several months flying this thing. I used his fit first for the first couple of fights that worked fine, but eventually I decided that I wanted a quicker align time. And I dropped the damage rig for a polycarbon, which dropped my align time to just below 4 seconds. It wasn't great, but it's still not terrible, just enough to operate nullsec pretty well. And then with the extra fitting space, I upgraded the warp drive to a quad lift. Stats-wise, it's okay. I'm running this with a clean pod and no drugs. Eventually, I just stopped carrying podgen filaments entirely because it's a brawling fit. I expect it to die, so tried to keep it cheap as possible. Out to maybe 8 kilometers, it'll do 260 BPS, gets maybe 2800 cold from the drive, and it'll do maybe 10,000 HP if you remember your links. If not for the micro jump drive, it'd probably be a pretty mediocre brawler, but with it, all of a sudden you have a really interesting piece of mobility, and I've tried in the flights that follow to illustrate what you can do with that. I've recorded these fights chronologically. Obviously, this is pretty far outside the box for me, so I made a lot of mistakes, especially early on. Poor heat management, poor decisions. But hey, it's a Napoli video. Of course we have spaghetti. Here I make a mistake. I was angling for a shot at the Garmer, and I figured he'd have max tackle in the armor fit, so I swapped explosive. When the shot comes, though, it won't be the Garmer, and I'll find myself with exactly the wrong ammo type. Here I see an angle on the flycatcher. I know I'm not getting out of this system alive, and I figure that's my best chance at a kill, so I take it. But with the wrong ammo type, and having forgotten my links again, this will be closer than it should have been. This next fight sees me taken down south, where I happen to run into some old friends from Endcoin. We were chatting and catching up a bit when Mac decided to challenge me to single combat. Now Mac isn't just better than me, he's one of the most experienced frigate pilots I know. And I'm in a rocket Stork. On an open nullsec grid against a fast frigate, this thing's really gonna struggle. But I can't refuse the challenge. That's a matter of honor. This is the moment I lose the fight. I should have given my micro-warp drive another cycle and closed ranged even further, but instead, he breaks out of my scram. Now I'm bleeding buffer. I can't get back on top of him. It's time to disengage. Good fight, Mac. I'll get you someday. In low sec this time, I'm trying to engage a retry and a hookbill. I come to a site where they're landing and I see another hookbill inside, which for some reason I assume is with them. Now I figure they're all point fit, so if I can get on top of one of them on the inside, I can dunk him real quick and then jump myself out. Much to my shock, not only is the other hookbill not with the first gang, but he's an armor-tanked brawl fit, and I've just gone and got myself scrammed with 3 ships on the field. If I can't drop him quickly, I'm in real trouble. Picking a fight with the Draugr this time. Now I know he can outrun me and probably outdamage me at any range. But I think that if I can just jump right on top of him, maybe I can win the resulting brawl. The Draugr sees my jump coming and burns into it. I wind up landing at the edge of his point range. Nothing to do now but charge in. This is the last fight I got this season, only a few days before I cut the video together, and like the earlier one, it's pretty long. I've sped up the parts where I'm bouncing around planets because it's a similar concept. I'm just waiting for the response fleet to split up and make a mistake. There's a lot of footage that didn't make the video. There's obviously I'm flying pure solo, so there's a good chunk of me just getting vlogged and not accomplishing anything. And on the flip side, there's several fights I won that were just won on stats. They were over before it started, and I don't find that particularly interesting. It does die a lot. Obviously, most of this footage is either me losing or me getting some kills and then dying. But that's okay. I don't really care about my Z-kill statistics. I do this to get interesting and challenging fights, and with some luck and some time, that is something the store can deliver. This last bit is pretty straightforward, so I'm going to let it run without commentary. I'm glad at this point that I've gotten past a lot of the bad habits, the module clicking, forgetting the links. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.